Good evening and welcome to the news at 10 in the headlines tonight. The government of the Gambia signs 2 loan agreements with the Islamic Development Bank to enhance the operational capabilities of NAWEC and GAMTEL. The Gambia Armed Forces prepares to host officers from some 40 African countries who will be in Banjul to attend US-supported Africa Endeavour Test exercise. Joy and jubilation in Juba as South Sudan finally joins the World's Committee of Independent Sovereign Nations. And the Senegalese government agrees to send former Chadian President Hissène Habre back to N'Djamena, much to the chagrin of human rights groups in Dakar. These stories and much more coming ahead in the news. I am Esitumane. The Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Mamboure Njie, has signed 2 loan agreements between the government of the Gambia and the Islamic Development Bank. The financing agreements are expected to boost the operational capabilities of NAWEC and GAMTEL. Mohamed Jamal Sise tells us more.
The national energy and telecoms giants may be basking in the recent efforts of the Finance and Economic Affairs Ministry after the ministry succeeds in signing 2 financing agreements with the Islamic Development Bank.
The Birkama Power Project 2 will purchase a 20 megawatt generating set together with all the associated ancillary equipment is required. This new project is expected to complete the missing fiber network as well as replace existing and obsolete equipment and thereby restoring GAMTEL to that former glory.
The agreements signed under the auspices of the Finance and Economic Affairs Minister Mamboure Njie on the sidelines of IDB's 36th annual meetings in Jeddah, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, cumulatively amounts to tens of millions of US dollars.
In monetary terms, for the Birkama Power Project 2, it will cost about $25 million, while the ECO1 project will be about $27 million.
The conclusion of these 2 loan agreements between the Gambia government and IDB are expected to expand the energy coverage of NAWEC, power supply reliability and affordability, as well as improve GAMTEL's operations, restating it to its past glory. Such a huge sum of loan earmarked for 2 of the most important public institutions, NAWEC and GAMTEL, a Finance and Economic Affairs DPS says is a venture worth for the money.
We have tested the 2 projects financially as well as technically and found them viable. And we believe also that they are self-financing. And the financing mode that we have applied and used for are also quite appropriate because they are long-term, quite concessional, barely within 1% of interest rate, and of course have a grace period of about 10 years and will be repaid over a very long period of time.
Okay. Do you also monitor the implementation of the projects to make sure that they are used for what they are?
Of course, we at the Ministry of Finance we have a unit, a central project management unit that of course work very closely with the project implementation units or project coordinating units as it were. But management of funds of the projects and coordination of project implementation is the responsibilities of the MDAs.
Recently, the Gambia has succeeded in winning many loan agreements from the international financial institutions. Does that demonstrate that the Gambia has been having a record of credibility when it comes to loan payment?
We've been tested from time and time again, and we've never failed. And for that reason, even in the recent hostile financial environment, you've seen everybody rushing to us to give us money, indicating that our resource mobilization strategy as government is working.
Taking loans, officials say, might not be wrong in any way. What is wrong is improper management of loans to defeat their purposes and taint your credibility by failing your side of repayment bargain. For Grts News, I am Mohamed Jamal Sise.
The government of the Gambia and the African Development Bank have reached an agreement for the Participatory Integrated Watershed Management Project (PWAM) to seek an incremental funding from the Global Environment Facility. That development paved the way for the launch of the Sustainable Land Management Project, which is poised to ensure that PWAM interventions contribute to the reduction of land degradation, the conservation of biodiversity, amongst other issues. Fat Kamarakebe has more.
Is one of the major environmental factors inhibiting agricultural productivity in the Gambia. PWAM is an 8-year project jointly funded by the Gambia government and the African Development Bank and International Fund for Agricultural Development. The aim of the investment is to ensure that PWAM activities contribute to the reduction of land degradation, conservation of biodiversity, and improving the adaptive response to climate change through the practice of sustainable land management. Ibrahim Jawara said agriculture is the most dominant sector in the rural areas, adding that it employs over 60% of active labor force. Deforestation and poor farming practices have to a large extent hindered development.
Uplands farmers are under considerable pressure from shortage of land due to increasing populations and declining soil fertility. While the major problems in the lowlands are salt water intrusion, low water retention, and lack of access to swamp rice fields.
He further expounded on the plans ahead, arguing that PWAM intends to embark on a total low and upland areas in the country. Mr. Timothy, a representative, spoke about key objectives regarding the sustainable and effective management of projects.
The key objectives of the Sustainable Land Management Project are to provide livelihoods through promotion of community-based watershed landscape management approaches, enabling resource-poor communities to reverse declining land productivity and overcome the causes and negative impacts of land degradation on the structure and functional integrity of the Gambia's lowland and upland ecosystems. The project is expected to result in environmental and socio-economic benefits through investments in sustainable land management, interventions aimed at restoring, sustaining, and enhancing the protective and productive functions of the lowland and upland ecosystems.
The Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Babu Kanjai, said PWAM has to overcome the major challenges hampering the growth and development of agriculture.
Land degradation is one of the major limiting factors to agricultural production, increased food security, and also has both local and global environmental consequences. Given this acute factor, agreement was sought from the Global Environmental Facility (GEF) to complement the government of the Gambia, IFAD, and ADB investment in PWAM. The incremental GEF investments are aimed at ensuring that PWAM interventions contribute to the realization of optimal global environmental benefits, including reducing land degradation, conserving biodiversity, and improving the adaptive response to climate change.
He further spoke about the importance of the natural resources the Gambia is blessed with, the soil, water, forest, and wildlife, which provide the natural resource base of the Gambia and support most of the environment productive activities within the country. The ecosystem of the upland areas has become degraded largely due to inappropriate land management practices in the croplands. For GRTS News, I am Fatou Kamarekebe.
The Gambia Supreme Islamic Council recently embarked on an extensive sensitization tour of the country. The exercise has the primary objective of thrashing out issues deemed to be threatening the long-standing unity that the country's Muslim community enjoys. Ahmad Lamin Sise has more on the discussions that took place in the North Bank and Central River regions.
The first time in 19 years that the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council went nationwide to meet crucial players in Islamic faith for a period as long as over 2 weeks. The 15-day tour, which saw 2 days of frank discussions in its region, comes as the country tries to put a stop to the many controversies and divisions that have been synonymous with the sighting of the moon and consequently the observance of Muslim feasts like the Night of Power, locally called Laylatul Qadr, Tobaski, and Korite. The arguments normally result in a blame game between the highly educated scholars from the Arab world and those who have locally acquired their Islamic knowledge from traditional educational institutions known as majlis. The